So, guten Abend.
Let us begin with prayer.
Lasst uns mit Gebet anfangen. Lieber himmlischer Vater,
thank you that you mercy on us and that we can gather again.
wir danken dich, dass du dir uns erbarmst und dass wir uns hier wieder versammeln können.
And that you always want to give us the oil.
Und dass du uns immer das Öl geben möchtest,
That Satan would not have entire control over us.
dass Satan nicht die ganze Kontrolle über uns haben wird.
And I ask that you would help us to open our hearts.
Und ich bitte, dass du uns helfen würdest, unserem Herzen zu öffnen.
Please cleanse all the rubbish out that passed away.
Bitte kehrt den ganzen Müll aus uns heraus,
And that the truth can enter.
sodass die Wahrheit hineinkommen kann.
And that you would change our wrong ideas.
Dass du unsere falschen Ideen verändern würdest.
And that the truth can become part of us.
Dass die Wahrheit ein Teil von uns werden kann.
And I ask that you would help us now to focus on the topic.
So bitte helft uns jetzt, auf das Thema zu fokussieren.
And bless everyone that is attending the study.
Und bitte segnet jeder, der diesem Studium beiwohnt.
In Jesus' name, amen.
In Jesu Namen. Amen.
Okay, so this evening we want to look at Ezekiel chapter 1.
So, heute Abend wollen wir Hesekiel Kapitel 1 anschauen.
So let's turn in our Bibles to this chapter.
So, gehen wir in unseren Bibeln zu diesem Kapitel.
And yesterday we looked at how the prophets are being raised up, right?
Und gestern haben wir das angeschaut, wie die Propheten aufgerichtet wurden.
Joseph
So, Josef
and also the other prophets like Ezekiel. Okay.
und auch die anderen Propheten wie Hesekiel.
Okay. And we know that they are the first prophets, let's say, that will raise up Daniel and John here.
Und wir wissen, dass die ersten Propheten sind, die Daniel und Johannes hier aufrichten würden.
And they will then give this midnight cry to the rest. Okay.
Und sie werden dann diesen Mitternachtsruf zu den Rest geben.
Okay. Good. So, and we also could see yesterday that it's Ezekiel that stands here.
Und wir konnten auch sehen gestern, dass Hesekiel steht hier.
And what does he do with respect to Gog?
Und was tut er in Bezug auf Gog?
Yeah, he basically warns here, just like Jeremiah, right? Who says, yeah, okay, they hasted away, but they will come back, right?
Er warnt hier genauso wie Jeremia das tat. Ja, die sind weggeeilt, aber sie werden zurückkommen.
Because the Lord put this hook in Gog's nose, right?
Denn der Herr hat diesen Haken in die Nase von Gog durchbohrt.
So he turns him away here, but he brings him back here. Okay.
Er kehrt ihm hier weg, bringt ihm aber hier wieder zurück.
Okay. So, and that's why I think we obviously need to understand also the book of Ezekiel better, because it's in the book of Ezekiel that Gog and Magog is mentioned.
Und deswegen denke ich, dass wir das Buch Hesekiel besser verstehen müssen, weil es ist in das Buch Hesekiel, wo Gog und Magog erwähnt sind.
Okay, so let's turn now to Ezekiel chapter 1.
So, Hesekiel 1.
And we know that he has this vision here.
Und wir wissen, dass er diese Vision hier hat.
Let us begin verse 4.
Fangen wir in Vers 4 an.
And it says, And I looked, and behold, a whirlwind came out of the north, a great cloud, and a fire enfolding itself, and a brightness was about it, and out of the midst thereof, as the color of amber, out of the midst of the fire. So what did he see here?
So, was sah er hier?
This whirlwind
Ein Wirbelsturm,
coming from the north,
das aus dem Norden herkommt.
and it's also a great cloud,
Und
right?
das ist auch eine große Wolke.
Okay, And then it says in verse 5,
Vers 5 sagt es,
out of the midst thereof came the likeness of 4 living creatures. And this was their appearance, they had the likeness of a man. So out of this midst of this whirlwind and cloud come now these 4 living creatures.
auf der Mitte dieser Wirbelsturm und diesen Wolke kommen diesen 4 lebendigen Wesen vor.
Yes. And it says it's also a fire.
Es
Right?
sagt auch, dass es ein Feuer ist.
Okay. Who came out of the midst of the fire?
So, wer kam aus dem Mitten des Feuers heraus?
Yeah, the 3 Hebrews,
Die
right?
3 Hebräer.
Okay, so they would illustrate those that come out of this fire. Okay.
Die werden denn diejenigen darstellen, die aus diesem Feuer herauskommen.
So therefore, when they came out of the fire, what did they become?
So, dann, wenn sie aus dem Feuer herausgekommen sind, was sind sie geworden?
They were cherubims, right?
Sie waren Cherubim.
Okay. And we studied this. Daniel chapter 3 would be an illustration of this time here,
Und
right?
wir haben das studiert. Daniel Kapitel 3 werde diese Zeitperiode hier sein.
Okay. And they come out at the end here.
Sie kommen hier am Ende heraus.
Good. But let's continue. Let's go back to Ezekiel 1.
So, Hesekiel 1.
And we know they have these 4 faces, yes, and they have these 4 wings.
Wir wissen, dass sie diese 4 Gesichter haben und 4 Flügel.
But I want to jump down now to verse 13.
Ich möchte herunterspringen zu Vers 13.
It says, as for the likeness of the living creatures, their appearance was like burning coals of fire, and like the appearance of lamps. So what were they?
So, was waren sie?
They were lamps. Yeah?
Sie waren Lampen.
And this morning we studied the lamps, right? Or the candlesticks.
Heute Morgen haben wir diesen Lampen studiert oder die Leuchter.
How many lamps were there?
Wie viele Leuchtern gab es?
7. Right?
7.
Illustrated also by the 7 angels with the 7 trumpets, right?
Dargestellt auch durch diese 7 Engel mit den 7 Posaunen.
Okay. So therefore we can see here another illustration that the angels are these lamps.
Deswegen können wir hier eine weitere Darstellung sehen, wie diese Engel, diese Lampen sind.
It says, it went up and down among the living creatures, and the fire was bright, and out of the fire went forth lightning. And the living creatures ran and returned as the appearance of a flash of lightning. Now, as I beheld the living creatures, behold, one wheel upon the earth by the living creatures, with his 4 faces. So what was there with each creature?
So, was war da mit jedem Wesen?
A wheel.
Ein
Okay.
Rad.
Okay, then verse 16.
Vers 16.
The appearance of the wheels in their work was like unto the color of a beryl. And they 4 had one likeness, and their appearance in their work was as it were a wheel in the middle of a wheel. Okay, so what was so specific about the wheel?
So, was war so besonders über diesen Rad?
It was a wheel within a wheel. Okay,
Ein Rad innerhalb eines Rads.
but there was a wheel with each cherub, right?
Es gab ein Rad mit jeder Cherubim.
So therefore, how many wheels were there?
Deswegen, wie viele Rädern gab es?
4. Okay,
4.
so each cherub had one wheel,
So, jeder Cherub hat ein Rad,
but each wheel was like a wheel within a wheel.
aber
Okay.
jeder Rad war wie ein Rad innerhalb eines Rads.
Okay. So verse 17.
Vers 17.
When they went upon their 4 sides, and they turned not when they went. And as for their rings, they were so high that they were dreadful, and their rings were full of eyes, round about them 4. And when the living creatures went, the wheels went by them, and when the living creatures were lifted up from the earth, the wheels were lifted up. Whithersoever the spirit was to go, they went. Thither was their spirit to go, and the wheels were lifted up over against them. For the spirit of the living creature was in the wheels. When those went, these went. And when those stood, these stood. And when those were lifted up from the earth, the wheels were lifted up over against them. For the spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels. Okay, so
Das ist Vers 21 soweit.
we can see therefore that these wheels were directly attached and connected with these living creatures.
So, wir können sehen, dass diese Rädern waren direkt in Verbindung und war verbunden mit diesen lebendigen Wesen.
So whatever these living creatures did, the wheel did likewise.
So, was auch immer diese lebendige Wesen tat, das Rad tat ebenso mit sie.
Okay, and then let's just continue here,
So, lesen wir jetzt weiter.
verse 22.
Vers 22.
And the likeness of the firmament upon the heads of the living creature was as the color of the terrible crystal, stretched forth over their heads above. So, and we know this, right? Above their heads they have this firmament, as it
Wir
says.
wissen, dass über ihren Köpfen gibt es diese Feste.
In verse 26.
Vers 26 jetzt.
And above the firmament that was over their heads was the likeness of a throne, as the appearance of a sapphire stone. And upon the likeness of the throne was the likeness of as the appearance of a man above upon it. So what is above this firmament here?
Also was ist über diese Feste?
The throne,
Der
right?
Thron.
And Christ sitting on the throne.
Christus,
Yes?
der darauf sitzt.
Okay, and now verse 28.
Jetzt Vers 28.
As the appearance of the bow that is in the cloud in the day of rain, so was the appearance of the brightness round about. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. And when I saw it, I fell upon my face, and I heard the voice of one that spake. Okay, so what is he also seeing connected with the throne?
So was sieht er hier auch in Verbindung mit das Thron? Der Thron?
Yeah, this bow, this rainbow.
Also
Exactly.
diese Regenbogen.
And it's a symbol of the covenant and also of divine mercy. Yes?
Ein Symbol von der Bündnis und auch von göttlicher Erbarmen.
Okay, so he saw the throne and the cherubims carrying the throne, right, on top of their heads.
Er hat den Thron gesehen und die Cherubime, die das Thron über ihren Köpfen trägt.
And they had the wheels with it, so it's a movable illustration.
Und sie
Okay,
hatten ihre Räder mit sich, also das ist eine mobile Darstellung.
okay, so they are the ones carrying the throne, right?
Sie sind diejenigen, die das Thron tragen.
What did the priests do with the throne?
Und was haben die Priester mit das Thron getan?
They also carried it,
Sie
right?
haben es auch getragen.
And when they carried the Ark of the Covenant,
Also wenn die Bundeslade getragen haben.
this was an illustration of the priest carrying the throne, right?
Cherubim.
Yeah, the priest carrying the throne.
Wenn die Priester den Bundeslade getragen haben, das war eine Darstellung von wie die Cherubime,
No, that the priest carrying the throne.
wie die Priester der Thron tragen.
So the Ark is the throne.
Und der Bundeslade ist der Thron.
Yes, the cherubs, they do the same thing here. Okay.
Die Cherubim tun dasselbe.
Okay.
It's like because the priest, as I understand it, because we've illustrated this before, as I understand it, the priest is Christ, he's the one that connects heaven, which is the ark, to earth.
So wie ich das verstehe, Christus ist der Priester und der ist derjenige, der verbindet Himmel, was die Bundeslade in diese Darstellung wäre, mit das Erde, worauf seine Füße stehen.
As I remember how we understood it, like he was the center, so because he has.
Yeah, the cherubims are the mediator, yeah, the
Ja,
link.
diese
Yeah.
Mittler, also die Cherubime sind der Mittler.
They're his representatives, they're his oil that he.
Die Cherubime sind seine Repräsentanten.
Yes, because we studied this right in the sanctuary. We don't have it here now, but you had the two pillars.
So, wir
Yes?
haben das studiert in das Heiligtum, das ist nicht auf der Tafel jetzt dargestellt, aber wir hatten diesen zwei Säulen.
And the pillars are what?
Und die Säulen sind was?
His feet, right?
Seine Füßen.
But they are also his apostles.
Die
Okay.
sind aber auch sein Apostel.
Yeah, so when you're an apostle, you're also a cherub, right?
Wenn du ein Apostel bist, bist du auch ein Cherub.
Okay, so therefore this is an illustration of how Christ, who's on the throne, is now with his feet here on earth through these angels.
So
Okay?
deswegen, das hier ist eine Darstellung, wie Christus auf dem Thron sitzt und durch seine Engel, seine Füße sind auf Erde.
Yes, it says footstool.
Seine
Yes.
Füße schemel.
Exactly. Okay, so and the cherubims are his feet basically. Okay.
Die Cherubime sind seine Füße.
Okay, so let us go now and see, because I want to look at these wheels,
Ich möchte jetzt diese Rädern anschauen.
because we had these 4 wheels and they all look like a wheel within a wheel.
Ja,
Okay.
diese 4 Rädern, sie sahen allen aus wie ein Rad in ein Rad.
So just keep your finger here. Let's go to Daniel chapter 7.
Haltet den Platz hier und geht zu Daniel 7.
Then verse 9.
Und Vers 9.
Says, I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like the pure wool. His throne was like the fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire. So what can we see about the throne here?
Was können wir hier über das Thron sehen?
As wheels, right?
Räder.
Okay, like burning fire.
Sind wie brennendes Feuer.
Okay, so, but now let us go to Psalms.
Gehen wir jetzt zu Zahlen.
Actually, first let's go to Isaiah chapter 5.
Oder zuerst gehen wir zu Jesaja Kapitel 5.
And let us read verse 26 to 28.
Und wir lesen die Versen 26 bis 28.
Isaiah 20.
No, Isaiah 5, verse 26 to 28.
Jesaja 5, 26 bis 28.
We want to look at the wheels.
Wir
Okay?
wollen die Räder anschauen.
It says, And he will lift up an ensign to the nations from far, and will hiss unto them from the end of the earth. And behold, they shall come with speed swiftly. None shall be weary nor stumble among them, and none shall slumber nor sleep. Neither shall the girdle of their loins be loosed, nor the latchet of their shoes be broken. Whose arrows are sharp, and all their bows bent. Their horses' hoofs shall be counted like flint, and their wheels like a whirlwind. Okay, so what are the wheels likened here?
So, mit was sind die Räder hier verglichen?
Like whirlwind.
Wie ein
Okay.
Wirbelsturm.
Okay. Now go to Ecclesiastes chapter 1.
So geht zu Prediger 1.
And then verse 6.
Und Vers 6.
It says, The wind goeth toward the south, and turneth about unto the north. It whirleth about continually, and the wind returneth again according to his circuits. So what does the wind do?
So, was tut das Wind?
Goes to north, back to south.
Yeah.
Back
Es
again.
geht vom Norden zu Süden und zurück.
It's a circuit, right?
Das ist eben ein Kreis.
And it says it whirleth
Und
around. Okay?
es dreht sich.
So it's like a whirlwind in this sense. Okay?
Ein Wirbelsturm in diesem Sinne.
Okay, and we know that the north is against the south, right? It whirleth like this.
Wir wissen, dass der Norden gegenüber den Süden ist.
But then you also have this whirlwind, right?
Dann gibt es aber auch diese Wirbelsturm,
Which is the east and the west.
was im
Right.
Osten und Westen ist.
That's where do we see this?
Wo können wir das sehen? Let's see.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Let's go to Exodus chapter 8.
Gehen wir zu 2. Mose 8.
No, Exodus 10, sorry.
2. Mose 10, Verzeihung.
The 8th plague.
Der 8. Plage.
Exodus 10, verse 13.
2. Mose 10, Vers 13.
It says, And Moses stretched forth his rod over the land of Egypt. And the Lord brought an east wind upon the land all that day and all that night. And when it was morning, the east wind brought the locusts. So that's an east wind here,
Das ist ein Ostwind hier,
bringing the locust.
mit den Heuschrecken mit
Verse
sich.
19.
Vers 19 jetzt.
And the Lord turned a mighty strong west wind, which took away the locusts, and cast them into the Red Sea. There remained not one locust in all the coast of Egypt. So what took away the locusts again?
Was hat den Heuschrecken entfernt?
The west wind.
Ein Westwind.
So it's always this circuit, okay?
Es ist immer diesen Kreis.
East to west
Ost zu Westen,
and west to east. Right?
Westen zu Osten.
And with the north and south the same. Okay.
Norden und Süden dasselbe.
Okay, so this is obviously something that the Lord wants us to understand, okay?
Und dies ist eine Sache, die der Herr möchte wir verstehen.
That's why in Daniel 11 you always have the war between the north and the south, because it's this whirlwind, okay?
Deswegen in Daniel 11 gibt es immer diesen Krieg zwischen Norden und Süden. Es ist diesen Wirbelsturm.
And it's a circuit, right?
Und es ist ein Kreis.
Because it first goes, let's say, from the north to the south, so the north defeats the south, okay?
Es geht zuerst vom Norden zu Süden, also der Norden besiegt den Süden.
And then the south comes up again against the north and defeats the north, okay?
Und der Süden kommt gegen den Norden auf und besiegt sie.
So it's an everlasting circle, okay?
Es ist ein ewiges Kreis.
And this is what the Lord wants to show us, okay?
Das ist es, was der Herr uns zeigen möchte.
But at the same time you have this with east and west, okay?
Zur gleichen Zeit hat man das mit Osten und Westen auch.
So just go to Revelation chapter 4,
Gehen wir zu
7, sorry.
Offenbarung Kapitel 7.
Revelation 7. Beginning in verse 1.
Fangen wir in Vers 1 an.
It says, "And after these things I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree." How many winds?
Wie viele Wände?
4.
4.
Situated where?
Wo sind sie zu finden?
4 corners of the earth, right?
4 Ecken der Erde.
So the 4 directions of the earth. North, north, east, south and west.
4 Himmelsrichtungen. Norden, Süden, Osten, Westen.
Yes?
Amen.
And who controls them?
Und wer kontrolliert sie?
4 angels.
4 Engel.
Okay. So, and we saw the 4, how many cherubims did we have in Ezekiel 1?
Und wie viele Cherubime gab es in Hesekiel Kapitel 1?
4.
4.
What was attached to them?
Und was war mit sie verknüpft oder verbunden?
A wheel, right?
Ein Rad jeweils.
So, but we saw a wheel was likened unto a
Aber der Rad war
whirlwind. Okay.
ein Wirbelsturm.
Okay, so it shows us these 4 cherubims are these 4 angels here controlling these 4 winds.
Es zeigt uns, diese 4 Cherubime sind diese 4 Engel hier, die diese 4 Winde kontrollieren.
Okay, so and they are the ones therefore controlling what goes on with north, south, east and west. Okay.
Sie sind diejenigen, die das kontrollieren, was mit Norden, Süden, Osten und Westen abgeht.
When you also go now to Psalms 83,
Wenn wir jetzt auch zu Psalm 83 gehen,
There's a quote that says he gave his angels charge over things of the earth. Remember that? It's the one to do hold.
yes, it's here showing a study Bible, I think. I don't have it now, but I know what you refer to. Okay, but let's go now to Psalms 83.
also gehen wir jetzt zu Psalm 83.
And Psalms 83, it speaks about these 10 kings, okay?
Psalm 83 spricht es über diese 10 Königen.
Okay, so let us begin in verse 1.
Fangen wir in Vers 1 an.
Keep thou not silence, O God, hold not thy peace, and be not still, O God. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. And they have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, Come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent, they are confederate against thee. And then at the beginning of verse 6, they list now these 10 nations, right?
Dann fangen wir in Vers 6 an, listen sie diese 10 Nationen auf.
Okay, so it's when they want to cut off God's people, when they want to destroy them.
Wenn sie Gottes Volk abschneiden wollen, sie zerstören wollen.
Okay, so now jump down to verse 12 to 13.
Kommt zu die Verse 12 und 13 hinunter.
Well, let us even begin in verse 11.
So fangen wir in Vers 11 an.
Because this is not the psalmist basically pleads with the Lord, please punish them. Okay?
Weil der Psalmschreiber fleht mit dem Herrn, dass er sie bestrafe.
It says, make their nobles like Oreb and like Zeb. Now, Oreb and Zeb were those that were punished by Gideon. Okay?
Oreb und Seb war diejenigen, die von Gideon bestraft wurden.
Yea, all their princes as Zebah and as Salmunna, who said, let us take to ourselves the houses of God in possession. O my God, make them like a wheel, as the stubble before the wind. So, what is he asking God them to do?
So, wonach bittet er, dass Gott tue?
Or what should he make of them?
Was soll er aus sie machen?
Like a wheel.
Ja, ein Rad.
So we can see the godless, they are also illustrated as a wheel.
So, wir können sehen, dass die Gottlosen sind auch wie ein Rad dargestellt.
Okay, so therefore when we bring these two things together, the wheel is a whirlwind, but it also illustrates the wicked. Okay.
Wenn wir diese zwei Sachen zusammenbringen, das hat der Rad stellt ein Wirbelsturm dar, aber auch die Bösen.
It's the affairs of the things on the earth, right? So it's
Yes.
complicated.
So basically we can see it's the four angels, they control therefore these wicked elements here on earth. Okay.
Wir können sehen, dass die vier Engel diese bösen Elementen hier auf Erde kontrollieren.
So these winds are obviously evil powers. Okay.
So, diese Winde sind böse Mächte.
So now let us go to this quote that I posted.
So gehen wir in der Livestream zu diesem Zitat, die ich gepostet habe.
From Prophets and Kings.
Und Propheten und Könige.
It says, while nations have rejected God's principles, and in this rejection have wrought their own ruin, yet a divine overruling purpose has manifestly been at work throughout the ages. It was this that the prophet Ezekiel saw in the wonderful representation given him during his exile in the land of the Chaldeans, when before his astonished gaze were portrayed the symbols that revealed an overruling power that has to do with the affairs of earthly rulers. Okay, so what did he see?
Was sah er?
No, it says here, while nations have rejected God's principles, right?
So Nationen haben Gottes Prinzipien verworfen
And in this rejection have wrought their own ruin.
und in dieser Verwerfung haben ihrem eigenen Zerfall beigebracht.
Yet the divine overruling purpose has manifestly been at work throughout the ages. Okay, so God is in control.
So, Gott ist in Kontrolle.
Hook that he puts in their jaw.
Yes, but the nations, it says here, they will always reject God's principles.
Aber die Nation, sagt es hier, sie werden immer Gottes Prinzipien verwerfen.
Okay, and
It's an overruling purpose. This is what they saw.
yes, yeah, so it shows us, okay, the nations, they are these wheels. That's what we read in Psalms 83.
So,
Okay?
das zeigt uns, dass die Nationen sind diese Räder. Und das ist, was wir im Psalm 83 gelesen haben.
Yeah, but even though they reject God's principles, they are overruled by these cherubims.
Aber
Okay?
selbst obwohl sie Gottes Prinzipien verwerfen, sie werden überstimmt bei diesen Cherubim.
And this is something we need to understand.
Dies ist, was wir verstehen müssen.
Because if we don't understand this, we cannot believe it.
Denn
Okay?
wenn wir es nicht verstehen, können wir es denn auch nicht glauben.
Yeah, when we get confronted with the state powers,
Und wenn wir mit den Staatsmächten konfrontiert werden,
what do we do then?
was tun wir dann?
Yeah, no, we
It says faith.
we don't exercise faith, right? We give in and we flee away, okay? If you don't understand it.
Also wenn du es nicht verstehst und du damit konfrontiert wirst, dann wirst du wegflüchten, also keinen Glauben hast.
But when the state powers come against you and you believe that God is in control, okay?
Wenn die Staatsmächten gegen dich ankommen und du glaubst, dass Gott in Kontrolle sitzt,
And you know He will overrule it, you have faith to endure this,
und
okay?
er weiß, dass dies überstimmen wird, dann hast du Glaube, es auszuharren.
Brothers and sisters, it's obvious that the state powers are on the verge to come against us, okay?
Und, liebe Geschwister, es ist sehr offensichtlich, dass die Staatsmächten stehen an der Schwelle, gegen uns anzukommen.
And God is just prolonging it over and over again, because we're not ready yet. Okay.
Und zögert es nur die ganze Zeit heraus, weil wir noch nicht bereit sind.
But for instance, now these schooling issues, they clearly show that's just the rumbling of the dragon. Okay.
Diese Sachen bezüglich der Schule, das ist nur das Brüllen des Drachens.
But they will come. Okay.
Aber sie werden sicherlich kommen.
At the moment they are still quite nice and they think we're no threat to them. Okay.
Im Moment sind sie immer noch relativ nett. Sie denken, dass wir für sie keine Bedrohung sind.
But as soon as we tug at their chain, they will not like it. Okay.
Sobald dass wir an der Kette ziehen, werden sie es nicht mögen.
And this is our destiny as Christians. We must stand up against these giants. Okay.
Dies ist unser Schicksal als Christen. Wir müssen aufstehen gegen diesen Riesen.
And we're not to submit and we're not to bow down to their false decrees. Okay.
So, wir sollen nichts hingeben und uns deren falschen Dekreten niederwerfen.
But we are to stand as God's witnesses. Okay.
Sondern wir sollen stehen als Gottes Zeugen.
Accept all the trouble that will come upon us, all the persecution that will come upon us because of this.
Und wir sollen all die Verfolgung und Schwierigkeiten, die uns deswegen auf uns zukommen werden, annehmen.
And believe that these cherubims, they have everything under perfect control. Okay.
Und glauben, dass diese Cherubime alles unter perfekten Kontrolle haben.
Okay, and this is what was shown here to Ezekiel. That's what Sister White says. Okay.
Das ist, was hier Hesekiel gezeigt würde. Das sagt Ellen White.
It says here, it was this that the prophet Ezekiel saw in the wonderful representation given him during his exile in the land of the Chaldeans, when before his astonished gaze were portrayed the symbols that revealed an overruling power that has to do with the affairs of earthly rulers.
That's Proverbs 21, Lord.
Proverbs 21?
Verse 1.
Sprüche 21.
It's because the nations are waters.
Yeah, okay. So let's turn there, then Proverbs 21, verse 1.
Gehen wir zu Sprüche 21, Vers 1.
And these are promises, right? We need to remember them in order that we can claim them.
Und dies sind Verheißungen und wir müssen sie erinnern, damit wir sie in Anspruch nehmen können.
It says, "The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord, as the rivers of water. He turneth it whithersoever he will." Yes? So the state powers, they have no power. Okay?
Die Staatsmächten haben eigentlich keine Macht.
The only power they have is of God. Okay?
Die einzige Macht, die sie haben, ist von Gott.
What Christ said to Pilate.
Pilate, yeah.
Das, was Christus zu Pilatus gesagt hat.
Okay, let's turn there also. Let's go to John
Gehen wir auch dahin.
chapter 18.
Gehen wir zu Johannes 18.
Actually, it's chapter 19,
Sogar Kapitel 19,
verse 10 to 11.
Verse 10 und 11.
It says, "Then saith Pilate unto him, Speakest thou not unto me? Knowest thou not that I have power to crucify thee, and have power to release thee?" Das ist Johannes 19, Vers 10 und 11. Jesus answered, "Thou couldst have no power at all against me, except it were given thee from above. Therefore he that delivered me unto thee hath greater sin." Okay? So we need to believe that the state powers, they only have power from God. Okay?
So, wir müssen das glauben, dass die Staatsmächte nur Kraft von Gott haben.
And God can turn it whenever he pleases.
Und
Okay?
Gott kann das wenden, so wie er möchte.
And we always have to make a decision. Do we look now at these giants? Okay.
Und wir müssen immer die Entscheidung treffen. Schauen wir die Riesen an?
Or do we look at the even greater giant God who can make like this? Okay.
Oder schauen wir der umso riesiger Gott an, die solche Entscheidungen treffen kann.
But he can only do this to Goliath if we stand up like little David. Okay.
Er kann nur dies Goliath antun, so wie wenn wir aufstehen, so wie David.
Okay. So, and this is what we need to believe. Yeah? And they will come against us. They will persecute us.
Und das ist es, was wir glauben müssen. Sie werden gegen uns kommen und werden uns verfolgen.
Okay. So, let us go now back to this quote.
Gehen wir jetzt zurück zu der Zitat.
Second paragraph.
Zweiter Absatz.
It says, upon the banks of the river Sheba, Ezekiel beheld a whirlwind seeming to come from the north, a great cloud and a fire enfolding itself, and a brightness was about it, and out of the midst thereof as the color of amber. A number of wheels intersecting one another were moved by 4 living beings. How were they moved?
So, wie waren sie berührt? Bewegt?
By 4 living beings. Okay.
4 lebendige Wesen.
So they are the ones moving these wheels.
Die
Okay.
sind diejenigen, die diese Rädern bewegen.
Moving the nations.
Die Nationen bewegen eben.
Binding and loosing.
Yeah, binding and loosing. Okay.
Binden und lösen.
High above all these was the likeness of a throne, as the appearance of a sapphire stone, and upon the likeness of the throne was the likeness as the appearance of a man above upon it. Now, so Christ is highly exalted over these wheels. Okay.
Christus ist hoch erhöht über diesen Rädern.
The wheels are there for His purpose. Okay.
Die Räder sind da für seine Zwecke.
Yeah. So these wheels move His throne. Okay.
Also diese Räder bewegen sein Thron.
But these wheels are not doing as they please, but they are under control of the cherubims.
Und
Okay.
diese Räder tun nicht das, was sie wollen, sondern die sind unter die Kontrolle der Cherubim.
So therefore, it shows us clearly God alone is mighty. Okay.
Also das zeigt uns ganz klar, dass allein Gott ist mächtig.
And He alone is exalted above all these powers.
Und er allein ist erhöht über all diesen Mächten.
And there appeared in the cherubims the form of a man's hand under their wings. The wheels were so complicated in arrangement that at first sight they appeared to be in confusion. Yet they moved in perfect harmony. Okay, and this is what we need to understand. Okay, it's wheels within wheels.
Das müssen wir verstehen. Es sind Rädern innerhalb von Rädern.
And they seem to be confusing,
Und es scheint verwirrend zu
but
sein.
they're in perfect harmony.
Aber die sind in perfekten Harmonie.
So these movements among the nations, they seem to be confusing
Also
to us first.
diese
Okay?
Bewegungen unter die Nationen, die scheinen für uns ersten Anhieb verwirrend zu sein.
And this is exactly what we experience at the moment.
Das
Okay?
ist genau das, was wir gerade jetzt erfahren.
So at the moment there are different illustrations running parallel with one another.
So, im
Okay?
Moment gibt es verschiedene Darstellungen, die gleichzeitig zueinander laufen.
So we have this whirlwind, right, north against south with Trump and
Also
Biden.
wir haben
Okay?
diesen Wirbelsturm, Norden gegen Süden mit Trump und Biden.
Okay. Then we have another illustration of this Ukraine war. Okay.
Wir haben eine weitere Darstellung in diesem Ukraine-Krieg.
Then we will have this vaccination issue coming up again.
Dann
Okay.
werden wir diese Impfsache wieder aufkommen.
And they happen simultaneously. Okay.
Und sie alle passieren gleichzeitig.
So therefore, these are things where we think, how on earth can we figure out correctly what they represent? Okay.
Die sind Sachen, wo wir uns die Frage stellen, wie können wir nur wissen, was sie alle bedeuten,
How to rightly place them on the line.
wie wir
Okay.
sie auf richtige Weise auf der Linie markieren können.
But we need to understand the wheels are within the wheels. Yeah, these things they intercept. Okay.
Intercede.
Intercept, like cross.
No, you wouldn't say that. I don't think. Would you say that? Intercept?
Intersect. Okay.
Intersect,
Thank you.
ja.
That-
Also wir müssen verstehen, dass diese Räder einander kreuzen. Die sind
Okay.
ineinander.
And we rightly need to divide them in order that we can understand them, but then also we need to see them in their harmony. Okay.
Wir müssen sie rechterweise zerteilen, damit wir sie klar sehen können. Wir müssen sie aber auch in Harmonie miteinander auch sehen,
Because they are linked with one another, right?
weil sie sind miteinander verknüpft.
Wheels within the wheels.
Rädern im Rädern.
And
eben.
they're totally complicated at first glance, but in perfect harmony once you understand them.
Die sind
Okay.
total kompliziert auf den ersten Blick, aber in totaler Harmonie, wenn du sie eins verstehst.
And this was Ezekiel's experience.
Das
Okay.
war die Erfahrung von Hesekiel.
So he illustrates us. Okay.
Und er stellt uns dar.
So when the Lord wants to show us all these complicated events, that we can understand, for instance, Gog and Magog correctly.
Also wenn der Herr uns all diese komplizierte Ereignisse zeigen möchte, zum Beispiel, dass wir Gog und Magog richtig verstehen können,
I mean, I don't say that we understand it incorrectly, but in the sense that we understand it in its complete understanding. Okay.
also ich meine nicht damit, dass wir es falsch verstehen, sondern ich meine eher, dass wir das in seine vollkommene Darstellung verstehen.
And that we also would understand it in relation with Trump and Biden and vaccination.
Dass
And
wir es denn auch in Zusammenhang mit Trump und Biden und auch die Impfung zusammen verstehen werden.
Careful with those words.
Yeah. Okay, I will try to use different words now. Okay, that, that this is what God wants to explain to us. Okay,
Dies ist es, was Gott zu uns erklären möchte.
but at first glance, it's complicated and confusing.
Aber auf den ersten Anhieb ist es kompliziert und verwirrend.
So it should not bother us at the moment that we don't fully understand it yet. Okay,
Es sollte uns nicht umschmeißen, umhauen, dass wir es im Moment nicht vollständig verstehen.
how these different events are all tied together. Okay.
Wie all diese verschiedenen Ereignisse miteinander verknüpft sind.
Okay, so, but the promise is the Lord will explain it to us.
Und die
Okay?
Verheißung ist, der Herr wird es uns erklären.
And this will humble us in the dust, it says.
Und das ist es, was uns in den Staub demütigen wird,
Because
sagt
this
es.
what humbled Ezekiel in the dust once he understood it. Right?
Und das ist, was Hesekiel im Staub gedemütigt hat, als er es einst verstanden hat.
So let's just finish with a quote.
So, lesen wir den Zitat zu Ende.
So it says here, the wheels were so complicated in arrangement that at first sight they appeared to be in confusion, yet they moved in perfect harmony. Heavenly beings, sustained and guided by the hand beneath the wings of the cherubim, were impelling those wheels. Above them and upon the sapphire's throne was the Eternal One. So they are impelling the wheels, okay?
So, sie beeinflussen die Räder.
So I just want to show here this one quote, because it's a very interesting quote.
Und ich möchte diese eine Zitat zeigen, die ist sehr interessant.
I hope I find it.
Ich hoffe, ich kann es finden.
Yes. And we need to believe this, that God is directly interfering with these world events. Okay?
Und wir müssen das glauben, dass Gott direkt unterbricht oder sich in diesen Weltereignissen mischt.
So even though we might look around us and we see only injustice and corruption and wickedness,
So, selbst obwohl wir um uns herum schauen und wir sehen nur Ungerechtigkeit und Korruption und Bosheit
and we think we are always on the losing end,
und wir denken, dass wir immer an den Verliererende stehen,
we need to believe that will not always be the case.
wir müssen eben glauben, dass das nicht immer so bleiben wird,
But at the end, the Lord will turn it around for us.
sondern am Ende der Herr wird es für uns wenden.
And therefore we must endure unto the end.
Und
Okay?
deswegen müssen wir es bis aufs Ende aushalten.
Because else everything was in vain. Okay.
Ansonsten war alles umsonst.
So let's go to this quote that I posted now.
So gehen wir zu diesem letzten Zitat, das soeben gepostet wurde.
And this speaks about the Civil War in the United
Er
States, okay?
spricht über den Bürgerkrieg in den USA,
Between the North and the South.
der Krieg zwischen Norden und Süden.
Soll ich das mal aufmachen und jetzt mitlesen? It says, I had a view of the disastrous battle at Manassas, Virginia. It was a most exciting, distressing scene. The Southern army had everything in their favor and were prepared for a dreadful contest. The Northern army was moving on with triumph, not doubting but that they would be victorious. Many were reckless and marched forward boastingly as though victory were already theirs. The Northern army already badly defeated here the Southern army. Okay?
Der Nordarmee hat bereits in den Südarmee schwer sie haben sie schwer bekämpft, also sie sind angeschwächt.
So the Southern army was losing many men. Okay?
Der Südarmee hat viele Männer verloren.
And it goes on to say,
Es sagt weiter.
as they neared the battlefield, many were almost fainting through weariness and want of refreshment. They did not expect so fierce an encounter. They rushed into battle and fought bravely, desperately. The dead and dying were on every side. Both the North and the South suffered severely. the southern man felt the battle and in a little while would have been driven back still further. The northern men were rushing on, although the destruction was very great. Just then an angel descended and waved his hand backward. Instantly there was confusion in the ranks. It appeared to the northern men that their troops were retreating, when it was not so in reality, and a precipitate retreat commenced. This seemed wonderful to me. So, who came down and turned the battle?
So, wer kam herab und hat das Kampf gewendet?
An angel.
Ein Engel.
Okay. We saw the angels are impelling the wheels. Okay.
Wir haben vorher gelesen, die Engel, die beeinflussen die Räder.
So, for instance, in Ukraine,
Zum Beispiel in Ukraine,
the Lord can just make the wheels turn very slowly.
so der Herr kann so bewirken, dass die Räder sich ganz langsam drehen.
Yeah, but He can also speed it up as He pleases.
Er
Okay.
kann es aber auch beschleunigen, so wie er möchte.
Okay. So therefore, it's not about Ukraine, how slow or quick it gets. Okay.
So, es hängt nicht davon ab, ob Ukraine langsam oder schnell geht,
And what kind of weapons they have or not have. Okay.
was für Waffen sie haben mögen oder eben nicht haben.
It's all about God's decision. Does He want to speed it up or does He want to slow it down?
So,
Okay.
es hängt von Gottes Entscheidung ab, ob er das nun beschleunigen möchte oder verlangsamen möchte.
And it's dependent upon us.
Und
Okay.
das hängt von uns ab.
On our willingness to seek God or our worldly interest that we pursue. Okay.
Unsere Bereitschaft, Gott zu suchen oder unsere weltlichen Interessen, die wir verfolgen wollen.
And obviously, Sister White says we can speed up the second coming
Und Ellen White sagt, wir können das zweite Kommen beschleunigen,
if we would really humble ourselves and seek God earnestly,
wenn wir ernsthaft uns demütigen, Gott suchen würden.
or we can procrastinate
Oder wir können es aufschieben in die Zukunft,
by following our lusts and desires and not entering into this warfare.
indem dass wir unsere Gelüste und Verlangen verfolgen und nicht in diese Kriegsführung eingehen.
Okay, but the day will eventually come. Okay,
Der Tag wird dennoch letztendlich kommen.
but next paragraph,
Nächster
Okay.
Absatz.
you can see why the Lord interfered here.
Wir können sehen, warum der Herr hier sich einmischt.
It says, then it was explained that God had this nation in His own hand. So God was in total control
So, Gott war in der totalen Kontrolle
and would not suffer victories to be gained faster than He ordained, and would permit no more losses to the northern men than in His wisdom He saw fit, to punish them for their sins. It was a punishment also on them.
also auch eine Bestrafung über sie.
And had the northern army at this time pushed the battle still further in their fainting, exhausted condition, the far greater struggle and destruction which awaited them would have caused great triumph in the south. God would not permit this, and sent an angel to interfere. The sudden falling back of the northern troops is a mystery to all. They know not that God's hand was in the matter. What was it? It was a mystery to them all,
Es
right?
war ein Geheimnis für sie allen.
When Cestius hasted away,
Also wenn Cestius wegeilte,
was a mystery, right?
ja,
Why?
es war ein
Geheimnis or Mysterium. Yeah.
ein Mysterium,
Ja.
ein Rätsel.
So, and it was God obviously who said, okay, leave now.
Und
Okay.
es war Gott natürlich, der sagt, haut für jetzt ab.
Yeah. He put the hook in his nose and said, go this way.
Er hat
Okay.
den Haken in seine Nase durchbohrt und zog ihn in diese Richtung.
Yeah. And this is what we need to believe. Yeah, all these illustrations, all the things that happen here on earth, they are in God's control.
Und das müssen wir eben glauben. All diese Darstellungen, alles, was hier auf der Erde passiert, ist in Gottes Kontrolle.
And we need to exercise faith in these things. Okay.
Und wir müssen Glaube in diesen Sachen üben.
And we need to stand up for God's truth, and then He can work for us. Okay.
Wir müssen gerade stehen für Gottes Wahrheit, dann kann er für uns wirken.
Okay. So let us now turn back to Ezekiel chapter 1.
So gehen wir zurück zu Hesekiel 1.
So we can see therefore that here these cherubims, they're in control, right?
Wir können sehen, dass diese Cherubime hier sind in der Kontrolle.
And just keep a finger in Ezekiel, let's remind ourselves. Let's go to Revelation chapter 5.
So, halte den Platz hier in Hesekiel und zur Erinnerung gehen wir zur Offenbarung 5.
And then verse 8 to 10.
Und die Verse 8 bis 10.
It says, and when he had taken the book, the Lamb took the book out of the Father's hand. Right?
Und wenn der Lamm diesen Buch aus der Vaterhand genommen hat,
The 4 beasts and 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, having every one of them harps and golden vials full of odors, which are the prayers of saints. So who? The 4 beasts and 24 elders. Yes?
so wer? Die 4 Tiere und die 24 Ältesten.
And they sung a new song, saying, Thou art worthy to take the book and to open the seals thereof, for thou wast slain and hast redeemed us to God by thy blood out of every kindred and tongue and people and nation, and hast made us unto our God kings and priests, and we shall reign on the earth. So the cherubims are the redeemed ones that are now made kings and priests. Yes?
So, die Cherubime sind die Erlösten, die jetzt Könige und Priestern gemacht wurden.
So it shows us, the Lord wants to make us cherubims.
So, es zeigt uns, dass der Herr uns aus uns Cherubime machen möchte.
And we will become then those that control the nations.
Und wir werden diejenigen werden, die die Nationen kontrollieren.
Through God's Spirit and Word. Okay?
So, durch Gottes Geist und Wort.
And that's why it says great fear will come upon them.
Deswegen sagt es, dass große Furcht über sie kommen wird.
Yes. But God can only do this for us if we first go through this period of suffering.
Aber Gott kann dies nur für uns tun, wenn wir erst durch diese Zeit des Leidens durchgehen.
When we first give testimony for His truth.
So, wenn wir erst Zeugnis für seine Wahrheit ablegen.
When we first prophesy in sackcloth and ashes.
So, wenn wir erst in Sacktuch und Asche prophezeien.
First must everything look like it's impossible.
Zuerst muss es alles wie unmöglich aussehen.
First Goliath must first come up and stand before us.
Goliath muss erst aufstehen und vor uns stehen.
And then God can glorify His name.
Dann kann Gott seinen Namen verherrlichen.
And He can rebuke them and show that He's in control.
Und er kann sie tadeln und zeigen, dass er in Kontrolle steht.
So let's close with Psalm 68.
So gehen wir zum Schluss zu Psalm 68.
And these illustrations are the only hope we have.
Und diese Darstellungen sind die einzige Hoffnung, die wir haben.
Especially when these things become reality in our lives.
Insbesondere wenn diese Dinge Realität in unserem Leben werden.
And we need to believe them and stand firm.
Wir müssen sie glauben und gerade stehen lassen.
Psalm 68.
Psalm 68.
Beginning in verse 8.
Fangen wir in Vers 8 an.
Down to verse 12.
Bis Vers 12 hinab.
It says, The earth shook, the heavens also dropped at the presence of God. Even Sinai itself was moved at the presence of God, the God of Israel. Thou, O God, didst send a plentiful rain, whereby thou didst confirm thine inheritance when it was weary. So this is now when he pours out the latter rain here, right?
Vers 9, wenn er müde war. Hier ist es, wo er den Spätregen ausgießt.
Weary because they were oppressed and afflicted.
Müde, weil sie unterdrückt waren und bedrängt waren.
By the dragon power,
durch
right?
den Drachenmacht.
And also by all these false prophets and opposers of the truth.
Und auch durch all diese falschen Propheten und diejenigen, die gegen die Wahrheit wieder waren.
Thou, verse 10.
Vers 10.
Thy congregation hath dwelt therein. Thou, O God, hast prepared of thy goodness for the poor. The Lord gave the word. Great was the company of those that published it. This is when he published now the gospel, right?
So hier ist, wenn er das Evangelium
veröffentlicht hat. That's the midnight cry message.
Das ist der Mitternachtsrufbotschaft.
And what does it say then, verse 12?
Was sagt es dann, Vers 12?
Kings of armies did flee apace, and she that tarried at home divided the spoil. Yeah, so then the kings, they will fear you greatly. Okay?
Dann werden die Könige dich fürchten sehr.
And they will flee away.
Sie
Okay.
werden wegeilen.
They will give you the land.
Sie werden
Okay?
dich das Land geben.
They will give you the rights to worship God freely.
Sie
Okay?
werden dich das Recht, Gott freilich zu anbeten.
But you will never obtain this unless you stand for God's truth.
Okay.
Okay?
Du wirst das nie bekommen, es sei denn, dass du gerade für Gottes Wahrheit stehst.
And you will never obtain it unless you endure unto the end,
Und du wirst es nie erhalten, es sei denn, dass du bis auf das Ende ausharrst.
exercising faith.
Glaube ausübend.
Okay, believing that the cherubims are in control
Glauben, dass die Cherubime in Kontrolle sind.
and that God's throne is above them, high exalted.
Und
Okay.
dass Gottes Thron hoch über sie erhaben ist.
Okay, so therefore, as we can see, there will be these wheels within the wheels.
So
Okay,
wie wir sehen können, es werden diese Rädern im Räder geben.
and this is exactly what we look at the moment in the world. Okay,
Das ist genau das, was wir im Moment in der Welt anschauen.
but this is what God wants us to understand.
Aber das ist es, was Gott möchte, dass wir verstehen.
And even though it looks confusing to us, we need to pray for an understanding of the wheels within the wheels.
Und selbst obwohl es für uns verwirrend aussieht, wir müssen beten für ein Verständnis für diesen Rädern im Räder.
Because that's the only thing that will bring us through this time of affliction.
Das ist das Einzige, was uns durch diese Zeit der Drangsal bringen wird.
And will eventually humble us in the dust.
Und was uns letztendlich in den Staub demütigen wird.
Amen?
Amen.
Okay. So, then, let's say, then let us pray.
Lasst uns beten.